Okay, so first of all, an apology, Sarah. I'm probably going to run over a little bit. But I'm going to try and run over a bit. But it's for your benefit. One of the things I learned about 30 years ago when I started an international career as a Scotsman is you have to slow it right down and you have to enunciate very clearly, make a lot of eye contact, use a lot of gestures, so that people get what I'm talking about. Okay. That's my apology to you, Sarah. That's my reason. Secure Code Warrior are here at this particular conference for the first time. So what do? On a page, we transform the way software is created so that it's secure. Our mission is make the world's software secure. The app on your phone, the website you went to, everything. People build those products. People build those apps. Our job is to make those people secure, smart. They know how to do it. That's basically our mission on a page. There's a lot of words here. Again, marketing people, we set the standards for secure coding. We do that. We absolutely do. And we believe that that security starts with the software that's getting built. We do something really quite clever here. Most of you will know that there's always a bit of conflict between the people who build stuff and the security people who tell them that it's an ugly baby that you created. And there's holes in it, and there's warts on it, and we don't like it. And you can take it back to the shed where it came from, and you can start all over again. What we do is we build a space of learning to join security and engineering or development teams together. We create a space of learning to bridge those two things. We run tournaments where security people and development people get together and size each other up and realize that they don't hate each other quite as much as they thought they did. And they start to speak a common language in security, which they don't today. Security people say, insecure direct object reference problem. Back you go, and the developer's like, what? I'm just trying to build a website here. Get in my face. So they start to speak the same language. And look, overall, it sounds very philanthropic and very lovey, but we do want to build a much safer digital world for everybody in this room, their children and their children, their children's children. There's estimated to be about 26 million developers in the world by 2026. We've got about 400,000 of them on our platform right now, so we've got a ways to go, but one step at a time. Anyway, I'm not going to do a presentation. I'm going to tell a story. That's why it might take a wee bit of time, but Sarah's going to hook me anyway. Coming to a conference that calls itself the Future of Cybersecurity, I've always been struck by the notion that you have to go back to the past if you're going to really shape the future. Okay? Very briefly, where did I come from? Why am I a so-called storied professional? Well, I spent 5 years in defence. Purvi, who was here this morning, was BAE Systems, really sexy title. I helped build the periscopes and the masts that went into the Vanguard class of submarine, which is now carrying our nuclear deterrent. I helped to build the thermal observation gunnery sites that went into Challenger tanks that helped the Allies win the Gulf War. For 5 years I did that. And then 10 years I went into pharmaceutical. Where I extracted stuff from seaweed. Anyone heard of NutraSweet? Does anyone remember what NutraSweet is? The red and white swirly logo, brilliant logo. So it was like the first kind of artificial sweetener that went into a lot of things, NutraSweet. And if anyone hasn't heard of Viagra, then okay, won't talk too much about that. And then I spent 15 years in finance. And I had to ask the question because for 5 years I made stuff. I made periscopes and masts that went into submarines and tank sites that went into tanks. And then for 10 years, I made drugs for people, good drugs. So when I joined finance, I joined JP Morgan Chase, and I said to them, what do you actually make here? Do you actually make anything? The answer I got at the bottom of the screen there, I don't know what's happening with the font size back there, but it is missing some off the page because of the rendering. But the answer is money from money. Start with some money and make more money from money. And I'm like, okay, we can deal with that. So that gives you kind of that perspective and background. But I'm a great, great, great believer that if you are going to talk about the future of cybersecurity, then you need to know about the past. You need to understand where we came from. So I went into an AI tool that was looking at an LLM, and I asked about the people who quoted these types of things, and they come up with this guy, George, who said, those who can't remember the past are condemned to repeat it. And this chap, Confucius, from many, many, many moons ago, who said, study the past if you want to repeat it. And look, I believe in that, but what I did was I went into the AI tool, and I said, okay, I'm going to ask it this question, because this is my quote. To know where you're going, you first need to know where you've come from. If you want to talk about the future, you need to talk about where you've come from. And I asked it, other than me, who said this? And guess what the AI came back with? It was Google's Gemini. It used to be called Bard in the beginning. Anyway, that's a very insightful, commonly used phrase. It's difficult to pinpoint, blah, 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 blah. It's deeply rooted. So it's a thing. And I'm like, okay, I'm claiming that. I'm going to feed back to that. It was me that got it first. So if you see somebody using that in the future, you know where it came from. Right, my story starts in October 2014, and this big hack happened. Publicly available information, BBC News reported it, but it's the type of thing that you really don't want to wake up to if you're in global financial services. I actually said Jamie Dimon. Does anyone know who Jamie Dimon is? Heard the name? He's the president and CEO of JP Chase. He has been for about 20 years. Had the recent US elections gone differently, he would be the Secretary to the Treasury right now, probably, in the US. Pretty influential guy. But it went the way it went, and it'll be at least 3.5 years until we get there. So the type of thing you don't want to wake up to, 76 million accounts, yada, yada, yada. I was saying to GURPS this morning, this equally could refer to HSBC back then. I'm going back to 2014, that's 11 years ago. Stuart Gulliver was the president and CEO of HSBC at that time. It could be any of them, right? But back then, 2014, JP Chase, big breach. They weren't alone. You had Target, the big retailer in America, Home Depot, Sony. Remember, like you had the thing where the sensitive emails were compromised. eBay was hacked, and then this one I always remember because celebrities started losing their pictures. Remember that, or their pictures were getting breached, and getting fed around. So look, the point is, JP Chase wasn't alone at that time. People were getting breached, but for me, it was like the start of the cyber tsunami. It's like the kind of initial point where, like in JP Chase, we're like, wow, that just happened to us. What are we going to do about it? We're leaders. So it has to be a big wake-up call. I mean, imagine that happened now. JP Chase had a breach. But back then, it was kind of like early enough that it wasn't really, it was bad, but it wasn't that bad. We didn't leak passwords. It was personal information, but it wasn't passwords. But anyway, it meant that internally, we didn't have to convince anyone of the threat that was out there. It was very real. We'd been hacked, JP Chase. So it had to act as a wake-up call for us, and it did. And the way I see it now is that, yeah, financial firms, HSBC, one of our biggest customers at Secure Code Warrior, JP Chase, our biggest customer at Secure Code Warrior, you get the point. They really had to wake up to this stuff, and HSBC have been with us since 2017, JP Morgan the year after. So they really had to wake up to this stuff. And other sectors are improving, but they're still lagging behind. Financial services really get this stuff. They have to. There's much to lose. And the regulators saw it. Anyone heard of a regulator called the OCC? The Office of the Controller of the Currency. It's basically the person watching the finances in America. And any bank that's registered in America, like JP Morgan or HSBC, have entities that are registered in America. They watch what they're doing, and they saw this happen. They saw that breach happen to JP Chase, and they're like, wow, if this can happen to JP Chase, one of the biggest banks in America, one of the biggest banks in the world, this can happen to anybody. So we're going to go laser focused, and we're going to set the bar. Wee ginger-headed chap there, just to prove that it's an authentic Scottish presentation. The bar is set extremely high because the fix and the response from a JP Morgan Chase or an HSBC or any of these big companies has to be top notch. For them, checklist, I don't know if anybody's familiar with the kind of concept, but Jamie Dimon, the president and CEO of JP Morgan Chase, told us all, every single employee, it's not enough for us to deal with the letter of the law and say, oh, we're told we were supposed to do this, we'll fix that. And then the next thing is, we've really got to embrace this holistically. We've got to solve this problem. We've got to solve this. We've got to embrace the spirit of this law. Why is it there? It's not enough just to say, oh yeah, we did, yeah. We really have to embrace, we have to do this properly. We have to have root and branch. We have to really, really take this cybersecurity stuff seriously. And it cost them quite a bit of money. JP Morgan invested like 200 million in cybersecurity in 2016, and it doubled almost every year thereafter, because they realized this was a big, big problem. But they also were pretty smart in embracing it as a competitive advantage. Private wealth clients who were sitting in their jacuzzis talking to their buddies who are ultra high net worth individuals, all dressed like GURPS, by the way. Not got the body to match, but they're dressed like that. Anyway, see, my bank has been doing this in the cybersecurity space. Does your bank do that? No, I might be with your bank, so they could start to use it as a competitive advantage, having got somewhat ahead of the curve as a result of a breach. So bad thing started to turn into a competitive advantage. And what we see now in Secure Code Warrior is that financial services were the first company to say to us, training developers on cybersecurity, you know, like, yeah, quite good, we like that. Prove it. Prove the ROI on it. Show us that you're reducing our business risk, you're reducing vulnerabilities, and we're actually able to save money as a result. So we're having to do that now for companies like HSBC, JP Morgan, all of our customers, in fact, are now demanding that type of ROI. Okay, this is where it might slow down a wee bit, Sarah. So, the future. I'm really showing my age with this graphic. Marty McFly, for those of you trying to remember his name in the film, Marty McFly. Do you remember him, Sarah?
Yes.
I didn't think you would. You look way too young. Okay, so what do I think about it? So there's two endings to this story. So what do I think about all this stuff based on my experience? Well, one, we all know it, we talk about all the AI is here, but I put a little star beside it. I don't know if anyone else is like me when I see that. Where's your explanation of that star? Is it down here and I can't read it? No. I just wanted to make the point that everybody's been for a long time talking about AI. There's no real artificial intelligence. What we're dealing with is generative AI. I just need to get that point across. There's no artificial intelligence yet. The robots, the machines are not able to do what we can do. A year ago, I suffered a hemorrhagic stroke. And even my limited brain could make neural connections a billion times more complicated than any computer system can right now. We're much more nuanced. We make choices. We're so much more nuanced. So the artificial version of us just is so far away in the future. So let's not be too scared of that. But LLMs are definitely here backing up AI tools, and they're great, used wisely. So I didn't ask them for this. This is where I get a little bit ranty. I believe that, and a lot of sensible people say the same thing, that the generative AI tools and LLMs used sensibly and wisely, revolutionary, absolutely are going to change our lives inside and outside of work. I sit with I've got a 19-year-old daughter. She's studying human biology at the University of Glasgow. And I sit with her at the kitchen table sometimes having lunch, and we'll have reasonable conversations about what's happened inside my brain when I had the stroke, because she understands the biological aspects of it as a biology student, and I've got a generative AI tool, the LM, and I can say, what's the thalamus? And all that kind of stuff. So we can almost have a sensible conversation. So it's enabling us outside of work, but inside of work, just revolutionary. Back to this thing about history shaping the future a little bit. Any mega revolution, any big change that's happened in history, the car, the mobile phone, the smartphone, the internet, led to them all being hacked. High risk, high return, derivative trading. You're going to hear from a chap later on. Oh my God. You're going to hear from a chap later on, Rogue Trader, about it, and exploiting these things, and even fidget spinners. One of the vendors outside was giving it fidget spinners. There's always a honeymoon period. All seems rosy, and then it isn't. I think it's all upside, and then there isn't. So we need meaningful security. I don't say we put control and regulation in for the sake of it. We need it to be meaningful. And then finally, what did we learn from that story with the finance people? Well, prevention is better than cure. If you can't prevent it, make your cure good, like bloody good. Turn it in an advantage. Bad thing happens. Bad things happen. Don't waste a good crisis. Sometimes that crisis is the trigger point for a great solution to the problem, and that's copyrighted by my chairman, the CEO of Secure Code Warrior, Peter Danihue, so I'm giving him a shout out. It's always better to start left than shift left. You'll probably all hear, oh, shift left, shift left. No. Start left. Best way to do it. Spirit of the law, no tick box exercises. Embrace the spirit of the law, and then we get it right, you've got a real competitive advantage. So at the end of the story, what happened to these people, these people who had that really bad breach back in 2014, right? The world ended for them, didn't it? No. Anyone know what the market capital of JP Morgan Chase is today? Because it changes day on day, minute on minute. Almost 700 billion. They're doing just fine. Don't worry about them. And that's it. Did I do all right?
Yeah, well done.
Thanks very much. Thank you.